Fresh-faced congressional members descended on the Capitol for orientation today. And in moments, my angle tells you why the Democrats should be wary of some of these new kids. Plus, what does a former CNN contributor think of the network's lawsuit against the White House? Jeffrey Lord is here to tell us. And an Ingraham Angle exclusive, after teasing a potential third run for the presidency, what do New Hampshire voters think of another Hillary Clinton candidacy? Frank Luntz with a can't-miss focus group reaction later in the show. You do not want to miss this. It is hilarious. But first, the freshman insurrection. That's the focus of tonight's Angle. Today was orientation day on Capitol Hill for new members of Congress. But for Nancy Pelosi and the Democratic leadership, the new class is turning out to be more than they bargained for. Now, check out newly elected Congresswoman Alexandria Cortez. I think she may find her transition from rock star activist to just another member of Congress a difficult one. Someone should tell her that if you want to be taken seriously, even as the youngest member of the House, protesting outside the former Speaker's office isn't a genius move. She appeared with 200 young climate change activists, and it was inside Pelosi's office.
We need to tell her that we've got her back in showing and pursuing the most progressive energy agenda that this country has ever seen.
Well, these whippersnappers don't care about your seniority, Grandma Mimi. They want action, specifically Trump impeachment, trying to thread the needle here. She's attempting to placate the far left in her ranks while balancing the interests of members from districts that run more red. This comment, I found this today in the New York Times Online. I think it really accurately describes the current dynamic in Pelosi's House. Stay with me here, this is good. The Democratic Party won, but the Blue Party is not a solid, strong, united front. They're a bunch of very different groups that don't see eye to eye on most anything, but were united under the banner of Fire Trump. Good luck to them now. Their infighting will keep them busy arguing with each other before they can even mount an attack on red. Something that is good for the economy will not be good for the socialists led by Ocasio-Cortez. Any immigration reform will be rejected by the same cadre unless it abolishes ICE. Any cooperation with red will be forbidden. Nancy Pelosi has inherited a load of unruly children. Good luck to her getting anything passed by her own people. Well, it's not even a guarantee as to who will be the next speaker at this point. There is seditious talk in the Democratic caucus of finding an alternative to Speaker Pelosi. To save her gavel, though, Nancy is playing the female card. In other words, she's trying to convince her caucus you can't maintain a majority without a woman running the show.
You cannot have the four leaders of Congress, the President of the United States, these five people, and not have the voice of women, especially since women were the majority of the voters, the workers in campaigns, and now part of this glorious victory.
But there are dark pink clouds gathering on the horizon of this glorious victory. The newly elected crop of women on Capitol Hill see things differently than Speaker Grand Nan. Though they do not represent the majority of Democratic freshmen, these progressive upstarts have all the juice, all the energy, and all the excitement. And the political gender card that Pelosi perfected has been deployed in a new way by all these new gals. Congresswoman-elect Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, Ayanna Pressley, and Ocasio-Cortez tweeted out this picture of themselves at a progressive caucus orientation the other day. Check it out. They're respectively the first Muslim American woman, the first black woman from Massachusetts, and the youngest woman ever elected to Congress. They captioned the picture, Squad. And another photo with the hashtag, Change Can't Wait. Nancy Pelosi might have tagged this one, Mob Squad, help! Well, these women may as well be the four horsewomen of the apocalypse for the Democratic Party, if you ask me, because they represent some of the most radical views in Congress. Free college for all, free health care for all, the abolishment of ICE, a Green New Deal where the U.S. depends entirely on renewable energy. Have fun in those planes. And on the foreign policy front, they're even wackier. The anti-Israeli bias of some of these junior congresswomen-elect is downright disturbing. Ocasio-Cortez in July called Israel an occupier of Palestine. I guess you found that on Wikipedia. And when pressed to explain her views, well, you know, it was like, not pretty.
You use the term the occupation of Palestine. What did you mean by that?
I think what I meant is like the settlements that are increasing in some of these areas and places where Palestinians are experiencing difficulty in access to their housing and homes.
Do you think you can expand on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd also I am not the expert on geopolitics on this issue.
Well, the two new Muslim members of Congress go even further than this. Tlaib endorses a one-state solution where Jews have no right to their sovereign state. She said in an interview citing her Palestinian heritage, quote, separate but equal does not work. And in 2014, Omar tweeted, Israel has hypnotized the world. May Allah awaken the people and help them see the evil doings of Israel. Nice. She recently called Israel, one of our closest allies, an apartheid regime. Now, one doubts that this is what women had in mind when they voted for these female candidates, but you never know. Well, then there's Massachusetts' Ayanna Pressley. I think she's my favorite of all of them. She's a leftist on the warpath against white men. She hailed from the Boston City Council before walloping incumbent Democratic Representative Michael Capuano. Pressley doesn't sound like she's going to be singing Love Me Tender to Nancy Pelosi anytime soon.
It's not just good enough to see the Democrats back in power, but it matters who those Democrats are.
Well, Pressley vows that she's going to shake up what she calls, quote, the corridors of power and most decision-making tables that are dominated by white men.
When it comes to women of color candidates, folks don't just talk about a glass ceiling. What they describe is a concrete one. But you know what breaks through concrete? Seismic shifts, drastic change, activist leadership, a movement builds, and the citizen activist rises, and they are a force to be reckoned with.
Well, forced to be reckoned with, we'll see. But if her tenure on the Boston City Council is any guide, she's going to make Maxine Waters' approach seem more like Joe Manchin's. Now, you can be certain these far-left newbies is going to make governing all but impossible for the Democrats in leadership, especially considering that they're going to have progressive support, though, for one of their top agenda items, Trump's impeachment.
Is impeachment your top priority if you get elected?
I think it's certainly something that needs to be on the agenda. I absolutely do.
We don't want to be in a situation where the president is deranged and we've got nothing that we can do about it.
They say, Maxine, please don't say impeachment anymore. And when they say that, I say impeachment, impeachment, impeachment.
Fraternities across the United States are going to have drinking games all next year with the I word. Well, the Democrats have to be very careful here. Impeaching Donald Trump, Brett Kavanaugh, Wilbur Ross, whoever they're going after, could place them in severe political jeopardy. According to a new Politico Morning Consult poll, 51% of all voters are opposed to the Democrats moving articles of impeachment against the president next year. Only 33% support impeachment. But among Democratic voters, 61% want their party to start impeachment proceedings, while just 22% are opposed. Expect Pelosi or whomever the Dems elect as their speaker to delicately approach impeachment proceedings despite the cries from the left. But that doesn't mean that they won't harass the president and his administration to satiate their base. Axios reporting that the Dems are loading the subpoena cannon with 85-plus Trump targets in sight. The president's tax returns, real estate deals, Russia involvement, interaction with the FBI, even his Space Force will be targets of Democratic investigations. But one gets the sense, as they often do, that the Democrats are about to overplay their hand big time. Because if the Kavanaugh circus proved anything, it's that women don't like to see people unfairly tried in a public setting, particularly when the charges are politically motivated. While wrangling with the left wing of her party, Pelosi should not mistake her slim House majority for a sweeping political mandate or a license to make war on the president. Voters, female and male, will not stand for it. And that's the angle. Joining me now for reaction, attorney and RNC committeewoman for California, Harmeet Dillon, and DNC Reform Commissioner and former Bernie Sanders national surrogate, Nomiki Konst, who is friends with Ocasio-Cortez. Nomiki, I want to start with you. Does Ocasio-Cortez's stunt today demonstrate how divided House Democrats are?
I don't think that House Democrats are necessarily divided. I think that we're going through a very natural transition. What she did in Nancy Pelosi's office was actually a sign of a strong party. We have a new generation. I'm sorry, who just got their butts kicked? The Republicans. So I'm sorry.
Oh, no,
you're laughing.
Nomiki, that's
This is
funny.
how democracy works. Our party likes debate. Our party believes in free speech. Our party is grassroots.
How many pro-life senators?
That's a Republican issue.
Name the pro-life senators in your rank.
That's a Republican issue. We believe in
it's a human rights issue. Thank you very much.
Human rights issue is
well,
the
the babies don't count. We know that in your party. But I have a question. So
human beings don't count in your party. As soon as they're born, you forget about them.
You're saying, Nomiki, that it's a sign of unity when the biggest rock star, youthful congresswoman helps take over Pelosi's office. That's a sign of unity. I mean, I think it's interesting, but to say it's a sign of unity, Harmeet Dillon,
it's American. The Republicans don't like debate.
Okay, the spin doesn't work here.
We do.
I get it. That's not. I mean, you cannot sell sand in the desert, okay? And you can't sell this to me that this is a sign of unity when you see 200 climate change activists and Ocasio-Cortez like gesticulating all over the office, people getting arrested. Harmeet.
Yeah, no, it was a little wacky and alarming, I'm sure, particularly for Nancy Pelosi and other senior leaders of the Democratic Party, because they've won the election already. Now is the time for them to coalesce if they want to get anything done. But there's already been signs beyond what we saw in the spectacle in your video today, Laura, that they want to change the rules to increase the threshold in the Democratic caucus to 218. In other words, they want there to be virtually unanimity among the caucus. And so what the Democrats are really, they're overplaying their hand, like you said. And I think we're in for a lot of fissures and a lot of discord within as well, which means they're going to undermine their ability to move forward with their agenda.
And Nomiki, just so you understand where I'm coming from, the Republicans had plenty of dissent in their ranks. I mean, the Freedom Caucus versus the Paul Ryan contingent. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, but it's not a sign of unity. It's a sign of the party's changing. There's one side jockeying for power. Yeah,
that's what's happening with us.
But I'm not saying it's not unity. I mean, maybe it's farcical to think a party is ever going to be completely unified. And the Republicans certainly weren't, Harmeet, when they came in 2010.
No.
We had a big fissure in the party in 2010, did we not?
Absolutely, we did.
But now that they have their tax
continuing
cuts,
to see
they're
that
unified. Everyone's on the same page now that the tax cuts are there.
No, there's still
I don't think so.
differences.
I wish the Republicans were unified. I actually don't think they're unified at all.
No, they're not unified
at
all. I wish they had actually been more unified in the last 2 years, and we would have potentially held on to more seats.
Nomiki, let's play this for you. These are some of the Democrats who have stood now against Pelosi as Speaker. Let's take a listen.
I won't be voting for Nancy Pelosi.
I am not voting for her. No ifs, ands, or buts under any circumstances.
No, I will be voting for someone who represents the values that I am working to achieve for our district.
So where is this going, Nomiki, do you think, given the excitement behind Congresswoman-elect Presley and Ocasio-Cortez versus some of the old guard?
Yeah, I think it's not necessarily a generational issue here. I mean, the bottom line here is we are winning. We won back Congress. The Democrats won back Congress. And it is important to have somebody who understands how Congress functions, how to work with a diverse caucus. Now, do we have issues with Nancy Pelosi being an every single Republican attack ad? Absolutely. That's going to happen no matter what. You guys are still complaining about Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton is off in retirement now, but you're still leading episodes about Hillary Clinton. They're going to do that no matter what. I think what Nancy Pelosi does bring is an expertise, knowledge. She's very likable. When it comes to some progressive issues, she's very strong. When it comes to corporate issues, she's not. I think that progressives of my generation would like to see somebody who is more independent of the corporate class, that does not reflect a new generation of progressive
Democrats. That's what we want
Democrats.
in the Republican Party. That's where the Republicans and Democrats can, maybe on some issues, we can come together, because I want my party to be less captive to the corporate class, too, especially on issues of human rights in places like China and our trade relationship. Let's put up a list, Carmit, of some of the issues that are uniting a lot of Democrats today. We mentioned some of them in the angle: free college for all, free health care for all, abolishing ICE, a Green New Deal, which would include not permitting any money coming into campaigns from any industry that is attached in any way to fossil fuels.
Right. Yes, and rolling back tax cuts. That's another one that's really motivating to them. And I don't think they're going to have unity on that, because the same money that got these people elected, the big, corporate interests that want to see Democrats controlling the agenda, they're not going to let those types of radical far left things happen. And so I think that ultimately they're really going to be hobbled in getting this done. But it is going to cause a lot of acrimony and discord. And I think the real battleground, Laura, is not going to be for the speaker chair, but for all of the seats below it. So Nancy might end up getting the speakership, but the leadership roles below her may be going to some of these new radicals, and that's really going to be very
Now,
interesting.
Miki, does some of the anti-Israel sentiment, it's not so much a substantive debate about U.S. aid to Israel or Yemen or Saudi Arabia, but there seems to be, among some of the newer, more exciting candidates, a visceral hatred of Israel.
I would not say that at all. I would not say
You
that
didn't
at all.
get that? We just
No,
laid
not
it
at
out
all.
in the angle.
I know. I
Did
heard
you listen
it.
to the angle? That's
I
their,
think,
those are their words.
I've listened to many of these candidates. I've seen them. I've spoken to several of them. I've looked at their platforms in depth. I think that when it comes to some of these candidates, they're talking about the free speech when it comes to BDS. That is something that should be debated. That's what the ACLU takes a position on.
It's
apartheid? I think that others are misinterpreting their stances, but that is something we should be able to debate in a democracy.
Well, yeah, but saying that Israel is an apartheid regime, it's our strongest ally in the Middle East and a democracy. It's not an apartheid. That's just ignorant. I'm all for debates, but that's ignorance. That is complete ignorance. And it's bordering on anti-Semitic. But a fascinating conversation. And I think this is exciting time for the Democrats. You have to say, if you're a Democrat, it's exciting. I mean, it's exciting to challenge the old guard. I mean,
and it's an exciting time for women. Over 100 women were elected to Congress. So we can say what we want about Kavanaugh. They did turn out.
I think it's exciting to see what happens. The Republicans had their challenges in the majority, and we'll see where the Democrats go. Fantastic conversation to both of you. And for more on why Trump won and how the GOP could do it again, grab a copy of my new paperback, Busting the Barricades, What I Saw at the Populist Revolt, in bookstores everywhere. And next, CNN sues the White House. Doesn't this play right into the president's hands? We're going to examine it next.
I think Jim Acosta is a very unprofessional man. I think he does this with everybody. He gets paid to do that. He gets paid to burst in. He's a very unprofessional guy.
The other folks.
That's enough.
Pardon me, ma'am. Mr.
President, that's enough.
Mr. President.
I still love that intern. Do we know who that is? I really want to take her to lunch. Anyway, CNN filed a lawsuit today demanding that the Trump administration reinstate reporter Jim Acosta's press credentials, a move that Press Secretary Sarah Sanders said was, quote, more grandstanding from CNN. Now, the White House, you'll recall, revoked Acosta's credentials over that theatrical display at last week's press conference. And CNN's lawsuit is now claiming that banning Acosta runs afoul of the First Amendment's freedom of the press, as well as CNN's Fifth Amendment right to due process. Joining me here to react, senior fellow at the Hoover Institution, Victor Davis Hanson, Howie Kurtz, host, of course, of Media Buzz, and Jeffrey Lord, former CNN contributor and author of the forthcoming book, Swamp Wars. Jeffrey, let me start with you. You claim that CNN only cares about certain types of free speech. As a CNN alum, explain.
Yeah, well, two things. First, on the First Amendment. It's great that they care about the First Amendment, but as I've written in Swamp Wars, they're selective about it. When people are out there trying to attack Fox News advertisers or get Fox destroyed when they're going after conservative contributors or commentators, whether it's on Fox News or in conservative media. They're silent on all of this. And so, too, is the White House Correspondents Association. Last year, I wrote a column about this after I went to the Correspondents' Dinner, and they were all about the First Amendment. I asked Rush Limbaugh and Sean Hannity if, in their various troubles with people trying to take them off the air, the Correspondents Association had ever defended them. The answer was no. This is the problem. I mean, it's sort of, First Amendment for me, but not for thee. And the second thing is, I have to tell you, I know Jim Acosta. I liked him. I was on panels with him, in the sort of off-duty hours as we're running around America. I spent some time with him. I remember one night being in the same room with both Jim Acosta and Sarah Sanders. Things were fine. I cannot understand what he's doing here. CNN's own video shows him touching this girl. And then he goes on CNN and says it didn't happen.
Yeah, man.
I mean, look, I don't know. I don't know what to say about that.
I don't care if he's like the humanitarian of the year. Okay, I think we should ban anyone saying someone's a nice person. I'm glad they're a nice person. They help puppies and cats out of trees.
Just apologize.
But it is a stunt. This is look at me time in the White House press room. I want to go to Howie also. Howie, I always forget you worked for CNN eons ago.
A different era, yeah.
A different era, but. This is what CNN said in a statement today, Howie. Among other things, their Fifth Amendment rights to due process, that's the funniest of all, First Amendment right, freedom of press. And he said, if left unchallenged, the actions of the White House would create a dangerous chilling effect for any journalist who covers our elected officials. Has Donald Trump not availed reporters of himself and tough questions over the last year?
He's taken zillions of questions, especially lately. But with this lawsuit, CNN is basically signaling to millions of Trump supporters that not only does it seem journalistically opposed to the president, it's legally opposing the president. And when Jeff Zucker, the CNN president, who's now casting himself as a defender of press freedom, said today, the First Amendment guarantees reporters the right to ask tough questions. Nobody is disputing that. Right. It's not about a constant questions, though he tended to lecture the president rather than ask questions. It's about him flaunting the rules, interrupting other reporters, interrupting the president, and refusing to give up the mic. And that's been lost in this battle over credentials.
VDH, the public's view of the press, as you've pointed out many times in your writings, has been declining fairly precipitously over the years. How does this affect that?
Well, it's in a larger context. The Shorenstein Center, no conservative outlet, said 93% of CNN's first 100 days was anti-Trump. And then we had Christiane Amanpour, a pretty stellar luminary at CNN, said she could no longer be neutral when it came to Trump. And got to keep the psychodrama in context. It's not like Trump is surveilling the Associated Press or James Rosen at Fox. He hasn't. I mean, so
that happened during the Obama administration.
Yes, it did. And the other thing to remember is CNN. I mean, when Trump says fake news, what comes in my mind is they said that Comey would refute, CNN did, Comey would refute the Trump testimony, not. And they said that Donald Trump Jr. had advanced knowledge of the WikiLeaks, not. They said Donald Trump knew about the Russian meeting in the tower, not. They said that Scaramucci had $10 billion hedge fund connection with Russians, not. You put all that context, and then you have Anderson Cooper with the dump quote. You had, I think, the religion editor said, remember the religion editor said Trump is a piece of, I can't repeat what he said. We had Kathy Griffin with the facsimile of a head.
Anna Navarro last week. Does she work for CNN?
They were joking on a hot mic. Remember the joke about the hot mic? Trump would crash.
But Anna Navarro called the president of the United States a racist pig last week.
Well, how about
and that's like this.
How about the former head of the CIA, Hayden, twice evoked the Holocaust and the Nazi imagery.
So that's fake.
Yeah.
That's a lie.
Yes.
And they're perpetuating the lie.
So that CNN is basically part of the resistance, and I think that Acosta knows that, and he's virtue signaling to his audience, to his peers, and to his bosses.
Well, I also have heard, Jeffrey, from, well, now 3 members of the White House media circles that they don't like this. That, again, I'm not going to get into personality. Some people are liked or not. That's not important. But it does take away from substantive questioning on what's going to happen with this meeting with President Xi, what's going to go on with the attacks on the president's trade policies from the globalists at Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley, all these hedge funders that are trying to affect the president's policy. Those are really interesting questions. What are you going to do with the caravans? But you can't ask those because Jim Acosta has to throw a hissy fit as a grown man and pull a microphone away from like a 22-year-old young woman. I mean, that's classy. I'm sorry, but it's just embarrassing. It's embarrassing for CNN. I'm glad Ted Turner said what he said recently, or was it Ted Turner or who said Larry King, who said CNN's long since gone. Well, Larry King just said it's all about Trump. It's long since been a news network. It's not a news network anymore. Jeffrey.
Well, you've got all of those peers of his in the room. And you have to believe that at a certain point they're saying, for heaven's sakes, Jim, sit down and shut up.
Why aren't they saying anything?
I think what we have is a serious case of groupthink and herd thinking.
They're all scared.
There. And I think some of them are afraid to because it's peer pressure. You know, and they're all supposed to be anti-Trump.
I do think
that's why they don't speak out.
I think it was a strategic misstep for the White House to take away the credentials because it made him into a journalistic martyr. At the same time, it's made Jim Acosta famous. Maybe CNN will give him an opinion show, which is what he should have because he's got a lot of opinions.
He's not a reporter. He's an opinion guy. VDH, I'd ask you, what about Trump standing there, instead of revoking credentials, standing there and say, guys, I'm happy to answer questions. When you all want to have a press conference, let me know. Tell Sarah I'll be back. And just leave.
That might be wise, but it's sort of like revoking the security clearance for Brennan. Brennan basically called Trump, treasonous and an asset. So it was the same idea that if you hijack your show and don't announce or opinionate, and you just start ranting, or if I was a professor for 35 years, if I took a class over and I started doing that, I don't have First Amendment rights. My bosses or the dean would call me in and say, you're done, you're unprofessional. And the idea that he has a God-given right to sermonize and pontificate on a soapbox.
The lawsuit is a farce, and Ted Boutros, who's a respected lawyer, for arguing that this is a due process or First Amendment issue. Anyone who knows anything about First Amendment law, I'm sorry, that itself is a disgrace. You don't have a First Amendment right to enter the White House compound. It's preposterous. No, guys, thank you so much. And up next, an Ingraham Angle exclusive. So would voters really support a third Hillary Clinton presidential run? Frank Luntz asked that question to New Hampshire focus group. The can't miss answers, hilarious, are next.
How many of you, by show of hands, and I want you to shoot them up, how many of you want Hillary Clinton to run for president in 2020?
Wait. No. That was a pause. Well, I'd like to be president.
Okay. Well, she's tried before, and now there are rumors that she may make a third run's a charm. But what do actual voters think? In an exclusive for the Ingraham Angle, Frank Luntz conducted a focus group of New Hampshire voters and asked them if they had the stomach for another Hillary run. Their answers, well, they were quite revealing. Here's the exclusive footage.
How many of you, by show of hands, and I want you to shoot them up, how many of you want Hillary Clinton to run for president in 2020? Go. Why not?
Been there, done that. Hillary's day is done. Hillary was the most qualified person that ever ran for president, but the least electable candidate that ever ran for president. And although she will always have those credentials, she is not well liked, and she's not popular enough to be able to get the voters to vote for her.
Yeah, just don't want the same old thing, you know? I mean...
The same old thing?
Yeah,
Isn't that kind of insulting?
Well, I don't mean old as she is old. I mean the same old thing, meaning we already had a Clinton in there. We don't need another Clinton in there. We need somebody that's going to change.
I think the Democrats really need to do some research and coming up with some other candidates. I mean, Hillary's name comes up a lot, and she's got the experience and so forth, but just as you were saying, you know, that's in the past. The Democrats really do. They have to find some other candidates that can win the election.
She's been rejected twice now by the electorate, and I just think that if she runs again, there's not much of a chance. I think it would be a waste if she ran again.
The third time's not going to be a charm for her. She's been rejected.
even though she's a female, you can't run because you're female or black or whatever. She's old. She's old news, I should say, not old.
She gave us Donald Trump.
Yeah.
That should be enough.
She was the only person that could lose to Donald Trump. I mean, that Donald Trump.
You guys agree with that?
Yes.
No,
I don't either.
I think anybody would have lost to Donald Trump because of he said what a lot of people wanted to hear, unfortunately.
Well, joining me now is the man you just saw lead that discussion, pollster Frank Luntz. So, Frank, you're a professional pollster. What would you advise Hillary after hearing those answers?
To write another book, go do more speeches. But she'll be embarrassed if she does it. And if I was close to her as Mark Penn, who's coming on the show, I would simply tell her, no, you had a shot. You had a good shot, but the time has passed.
You know, I like the one woman, I was in school in New Hampshire for a while. I love the one woman who says, third time's not a charm. She has the New Hampshire accent. And the other one says, well, she gave us Donald Trump. I think where they might get it wrong is where they say she's the only person who could have lost to Trump. And then the wisdom at the end, the woman said, no, I think, he was saying what people wanted to hear. And she said, unfortunately. But it's interesting to hear that group of people. Was there anyone else that did?
Yes, to my surprise. They complained that she was old, and they didn't really mean her age, but they did a little bit. What they really want is someone who they think who can beat Trump, and they picked Joe Biden.
All right, so they didn't like Hillary, so who did they like? In part two, we do get some of the folks and what they say and who might have the right stuff to take on President Trump, as Frank just said, so let's watch.
If the Democrats don't come up with somebody that non-politician.
Who?
Somebody.
Hillary's oatmeal, and the Democratic Party, it may be good for you and it may say all the right things, but the Democratic Party needs somebody with some charisma and some pizzazz, like the gentleman from Texas,
Beto O'Rourke.
Beto O'Rourke.
You think he's good?
I think he seems to be able to maybe ignite the party again, which was something that President Obama could do.
Bloomberg.
Why Bloomberg?
Well, he was mayor. Well, I think he could take on Trump. He has talked about becoming a Democrat now. I think he's actually represented all parties. He knows that, he's got to go to the Democratic side if he really seriously wants to run. His business background, he's very outspoken.
Joe Biden with run for president with a young vice presidential candidate that can go hand in hand with him.
Wait a second. Joe Biden. The other one was saying Hillary was old. Isn't Joe older than Hillary, or it's because he rides Amtrak that makes him more of an interesting candidate?
Well, I'm told that Amtrak created the quiet car because of Joe Biden.
Oh, my goodness.
It's interesting that they're naming people who've been around for a while, but they reject Hillary Clinton. And a lot of those people there, because they're independents and they can vote in the Democratic primary, half of them don't want someone who can beat Donald Trump. Half of them still want Trump as their president. So the battle in New Hampshire isn't just on the left and on the right. If you capture the center, it's 20%. It's additional votes that you can't get in other state primaries.
Well, to me, the hilarious thing is when people are saying, well, that guy in Texas, he has charisma, that guy. Like, well, Beto. But it's like the name. I think Beto, O'Rourke, Barack Obama, same this, but, the names are the same. And charisma. People looking for charisma because they know Trump had it.
And they're supposed to, but these are supposed to be the most educated voters. They're supposed to be the most informed. And what is clear that they're now choosing people not based on policy, but based on personality. And that's changed.
And Trump's personality, contrary to the Jim Acostas of the world, people like that kind of rough and tumble thing. He was our bully, a lot of people thought, right?
But that's the point. It has to be for them. If it's just for Donald Trump, he'll fall short. But if he's fighting for me, if he's fighting for us, then he'll be successful.
So if you could advise Trump tonight, keep the focus on America away from your personal squabbles.
And I'd also be saying I'm your voice. Not only do I hear you, not only am I listening, I'm your voice in Washington.
The forgotten people, that line from his inaugural and from the convention speech, that really drove it home. Frank, love this. Thank you so much for doing it. And much to the glee of the Trump world, a former Clinton advisor recently wrote an op-ed saying that Hillary will, in fact, be the Democratic nominee. Mark Penn is here to react to the focus group you just saw. Next. Who's your dream person to run against in 2020? You've already raised $100 million. Dream candidate to run against.
So far, I like them all. I don't see anybody.
Hillary's not. Apparently, she's not down and out.
I like her too. I'd be very happy with Hillary.
Answers like that might come as a surprise to one of our next guests. Mark Penn recently wrote a Wall Street Journal op-ed in which he claimed, quote, reinventing herself as a liberal firebrand, Mrs. Clinton will easily capture the 2020 nomination. Joining me now, Democratic pollster, former Clinton insider Mark Penn, along with former Clinton pollster Doug Schoen. Now, Mark, you heard those New Hampshire voters. Do you still stand behind your piece?
Well, those were New Hampshire independent voters. Hillary has a 75% favorable among the Democratic base, 77% in the Gallup poll. So if you look at it, is she going to run? Well, I don't really know for sure, but will she look for an opportunity to undo the wrongs that occurred? Will she come back? She stayed very, very close to the Democratic base. She's fighting now in Florida. She's out there on the stump. You look at the possible opponents in the Kavanaugh hearings, they made fools of themselves. No one has emerged as a strong candidate on the Democratic field. I say it's a real possibility that she will run, and if she does, she will have an opportunity to have a second chance at defeating Donald Trump.
Words like old and oatmeal were used to describe Hillary Clinton. Man, that's time when I start hearing that. It's time to go to, I don't know what, sell reverse mortgages or something. I don't know. But that can't be feeling all that good. I mean, independent voters are important in New Hampshire, are they not?
Well, look, if we ran a focus group on Donald Trump, he wouldn't fare so well either. The truth is, both Trump and her have almost the same image. They have about 40% favorable and about 55% unfavorable of the country.
That's a fair point. That's a fair point. Doug, this is what Mrs. Clinton said tonight in Austin, Texas. Let's watch.
You know, I was kind of criticized and made fun of in the 2016 campaign because I really did give a lot of thought about what we could do and what would work. And I kept thinking that that would matter. Kind of didn't at the end. But
she's kind of saying, Doug, that voters don't really know what matters. Is that a winning message?
I must tell you, I agree with Mark's basic premise. She will run if she can run. She will say whatever she needs to say to win. And what I took from that, Laura, is she tried to figure out what would get her elected. It didn't work. And so she's now sort of blaming the electorate and doing what she's never done, which is to blame herself. Frankly, when you lose an election, you got to be introspective, and so far I haven't seen that from her.
Mark, one of the other things I think that some folks thought after they read your piece, which was a fascinating piece, was that back in 2007, in your strategy memo, I think, you said Obama was unelectable except against Attila the Hun back March 19, 2007. I can't imagine America electing a president during a time of war who is not at his center fundamentally American in his thinking and in his values. God, sounds like I could have written that, Mark. But he actually ends up winning because he runs against McCain, who was basically carrying on the Bush tradition, which people were rejecting, were they not, in 2008?
Well, that's right.
So, look, I've made some bad predictions, too, so that's okay.
Yes, no, I think that prediction was off, but the point that was, that's really taken out of context. The point was that Hillary was actually born in the Midwest, and people really had lost the notion that she really had deep connections to the Midwest because they thought of her as a New York liberal. And that, in fact, the day before I wrote that, Obama had gone to Kansas and was saying he was truly a Midwestern American. So it was taken out of context, but fair enough. He did win against McCain, who turned out to be a far weaker candidate.
He was God rest his soul, American patriot, but he was a terrible candidate for the presidency. All right, Doug, close it out for us. Biden or Hillary? If you had to pick right now, the candidate who is going to beat Donald Trump, which one would it be?
Typically,
either or, that's it.
Yeah, either or. I'd pick Biden over Hillary. Hillary will run if she can, but there will be a fresh face because the Democrats always want somebody new and different. Mark my words.
New Coke, new Tide, new. All right, gentlemen,
Exactly.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
And we've warned you that the Democrats are going to seek to extend the Florida recount by any means necessary, and they might be getting some help. We're going to take you live to Ground Zero in Broward County next for details.
Trump and Scott are attempting to bully the election officials in Florida out of doing their jobs in an attempt to win this election. It's just plain wrong. It's un-American.
This program is
been very focused on party because I want to treat all of the voters in Broward County the same. And I think if you'd ask the voters, you'd find that I have that reputation. I don't have a reason to hold anything back, except that I don't want to give out information that's incomplete or incorrect at that particular time.
No problem. Well, that was Brenda Snipes, the Broward County Supervisor of Elections, a registered Democrat, denying that politics is playing any part in the recount mess unfolding right now in Florida. It comes as we're learning of some new Democratic efforts to extend looming deadlines. Why not? By any means necessary. Senator Marco Rubio is not buying it.
An election office this incompetent and this law breaking, it creates enormous opportunity for those sorts of arguments to be made, and suddenly the election's decided by a judge or by lawyers, not by voters the way they're supposed to be.
Fox's Phil Keating is live with us from Broward County, Florida tonight with all the late breaking details. Phil.
Laura, just to the south of us in Miami-Dade County, Florida's largest, the one with the most ballots to recount, they are done. Finished the recounting process tonight to a room full of applause. Meanwhile, the lawsuits in Florida continue, and the extension of recounting hours by days just may still happen. Looking live inside Broward's operation, sorting of ballots continues around the clock, but they have now completed recounting all early votes. That's 300,000, and are now ahead of schedule for that Thursday afternoon official recount deadline. Democratic Senator Bill Nelson, joined by Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, is now suing in federal court to kill the deadline period so that every county can finish.
This process is about one thing: making sure that every legal ballot is counted and protecting the right of every Floridian.
Nelson's behind Governor Rick Scott by 12,000 votes in his recounted battle with the governor, Rick Scott. And as the legally required recounting has now gone 3 days plus, President Trump keeps up the criticism. When will Bill Nelson concede in Florida? The characters running Broward and Palm Beach voting will not be able to, quote, find enough votes. Too much spotlight on them now. And an hour ago, Broward County's embattled Supervisor of Elections, Brenda Snipes, unexpectedly faced the media cameras, and that she might resign, actually, after all of this.
All the emphasis, all the focus is on me. But I have a great staff who takes on any task, and their job is to get it done. So regardless to whether I'm here or someone else is here, there is an excellent foundation to this office that really won't matter.
And tonight in Palm Beach County, just to the north of us, reports that 2 of their recounting machines, they're old and overrun, malfunction. Mechanics are on the way, but reportedly a day's worth of recounting work has been erased, and that is a county that was struggling to meet the deadline Thursday. In fact, a Leon County judge this afternoon extended them for 5 more days so they can recount all their races, a decision likely to be appealed. Laura.
Phil, thanks so much. 21st century in Palm Beach County still can't count the votes. Oh, my goodness. Thanks for that great report. And when we come back, Monica Lewinsky opens up about Bill Clinton in a new interview. Tonight's Last Bite, next.
I can do more to lower my A1C.
We were actually in the back office for the first time. The truth is that I think it meant more to me that someone who other people desired me. However wrong it was, however misguided, for who I was in that very moment at 22 years old, that was how it felt.
Well, it was heartbreaking to hear that. She also told the magazine she recoiled whenever Bill gave an interview in the years following because she knew he would never be asked about his affair. An indictment on all our media. Now, that's all the time we have tonight. Shannon Bream and the Fox News at Night team take it from here. Shannon.
We will. Laura, thank you very much. And we begin with a Fox News alert. The recounts continue in Florida with new court filings and rulings in Florida and Georgia. We'll take you live to the scene where the developments continue minute by minute. We'll also take you live to the front lines of historic, deadly wildfires out west. Grim indications tonight that the death toll in California's wildfires will continue to rise as both ends of the state continue to burn. And tonight, the Justice Department's fighting back against new objections to the acting attorney general. Catherine Herridge is here to break down how. And Senator Mike Lee weighs in live. Hello and welcome to Fox News at Night. I'm Shannon Bream in Washington. We begin tonight with the political fires in Florida. Two contested races, Senate and gubernatorial, are still undergoing recounts. A Thursday deadline looming large, along with a number of new lawsuits. Not surprising. Correspondent Phil Keating's live in Lauderhill, Florida tonight to tell us more. Hi, Phil.
Hi, Shannon. Breaking tonight up in Palm Beach County to the north of us, two machines, recounting machines, have malfunctioned, bringing in mechanics to fix them right now. But reports are that Palm Beach County has lost a day's worth of its recounting process. This in a county that was already plagued by machines that are old and the prediction that there was no way that would meet the Thursday deadline to get this recount done. Well, actually, that may not matter. First, here, live inside the Broward County Recount Center, the process continues around the clock. Today, it finished recounting all 300,000 early votes, and Broward says it's now ahead of schedule. No problem with the deadline. One of the recount races in Palm Beach is a state house race. There, Republican Mike Caruso leads Democrat Jim Bonfiglio by just 37 votes. Well, a Leon County judge, a Democrat, today ruled for Bonfiglio, giving Palm Beach County an extra 5 days to complete their recount races, a decision guaranteed to be appealed by Republicans. Democratic Senator Bill Nelson also filed a new federal lawsuit